Assembly and our training session and workshop on the Innovation Fund. Welcome to Brussels, welcome to the rainy Brussels, and welcome to those of you who have joined us online. I'm Bozor Khanbai, I'm the policy officer at Batteries European Partnership Association. Very happy to have you here today with the starting of our workshop on the Innovation Fund. Our General Assembly officially starts at 3:30, but I invite you to stay with us there and also participate in our conversation for this very important support mechanism that has been introduced last year, very late last year by Vice President Shevchevich, who has been a great supporter of the battery ecosystem. He has initiated BEPA and many other initiatives in Europe that revolve around the strength of the European battery industry. This funding, which is going to cover up to 3 billion for the battery ecosystem, is a bit unclear how to pan out. So that's the main topic of our conversation here, that our colleague from the European Commission will give us a bit of an introduction of what are the options on the fund, but we have initiated this for those of our members that have not had the experience of this application and this funding, to get to know a little bit about the basics. Let's have the conversation within the battery ecosystem about this, and yeah, it's going to be some sort of a free think tank for us to reflect on what the fund is, how to tackle this, and the more details about this. So I'm going to be short on the introduction, get to the presentations first. So our first presentation is from the European Commission, Stefan Vergoot. He's the Advisor for Innovation for a Low Carbon Resilient Economy from Director General Climate Action. And we're happy to have you, Stefan. Please join us, and the panel is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. A big thanks for inviting me to this General Assembly of BEPA. It's a real pleasure to be here. These are actually exciting times for us in the Innovation Fund, and it's in particular in relating to batteries. So what I'm going to do is, it's called a training session. The Innovation Fund is still a new kid on the block among the different funding instruments that the Commission has at its disposal. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the Innovation Fund itself, how it works, what it does, what its scope is, its objectives, and then go a bit deeper into what have we done so far in the field of batteries. And then also, as was indicated, looking a bit forward towards the new initiative that was announced by Vice President Šefčovič on a specific battery instrument. No. Oh, that. So to start with, what is the Innovation Fund? First of all, where does its budget comes from? It is actually funded, and its budget is completed by the sale of auctioning allowances in the emissions trading system. In the fourth phase of the emissions trading system, approximately, which is the period 2021-2030, so this decade, approximately 530 million allowances have been set aside to be monetized by the European Investment Bank and to be put into this fund. 530 million allowances, we don't know what that exactly means in terms of how big the budget of the Innovation Fund will be. At present prices in the ETS of approximately 75 euros per ton, this could mean up to 40 billion euros in this decade, so quite a substantial amount of money. We are, to a large extent, a traditional grant program, so we work with subsidies through calls for proposals, regular calls. We also have, since actually this year and since the revision of the ETS, We also are in the position to support scale-up, and for that to also support scale-up, where you're really going towards early deployment of new technologies. We also have the possibility to work through auctions, so through competitive bidding. And we have applied that now once for renewable hydrogen that was completed earlier this year. Our ultimate goal is, of course, to work towards climate neutrality, to avoid greenhouse gas emissions through cutting-edge innovative technology, and of course also towards technological leadership to boost competitiveness of the European industry, as also is the subtitle of your organization when it concerns batteries. So, not there yet. We have a broad scope, but the key thing is that innovation is important. We are not just supporting any regular wind farm or solar park. We are supporting first and foremost innovation, but with a broad scope. That includes all energy-intensive industries, and that includes also carbon capture, use and storage. Also renewable energy, energy storage, and since the revision of the ETS, also net zero mobility and buildings. When we have this broad scope, that also means that the supply chain of these technologies, and that is particularly the case for energy storage and renewable energy, so the supply chain can also be supported. So the manufacturing of components, the entire value chain of batteries can be included, except perhaps mining, but the entire value chain of batteries is included. So where do we place ourselves in the different instruments, funding and financing instruments that the Commission has available? Upstream, you have, of course, programs like Horizon Europe and European Innovation Council, which you, of course, know very well. And more on the downstream side, you have more real deployment instruments. The unique selling point of the Innovation Fund actually is that it aims to bring projects to market. So that you bring R&I results, you apply them for the first, second, third time, you apply them in a commercial project. So what is very clear is these are not research projects, these are intended to be commercial projects. And that also means that we can support a single beneficiary. So if a company submits a project that is only an internal project, that is possible. We can support quite large projects, also small projects, but we have actually sometimes projects that go into really high numbers. So if it's really large-scale demonstration, first of a kind, you can really have a very big project that sometimes can get up to a subsidy of 100 or 200 million euros. And of course, what is also different than Horizon Europe is that we are not taking the approach of traditional project costs. We are taking more the approach of what is your funding gap. That is the basis for our support. We can support up to 60% of the funding back. So through a financial model, you need to calculate how much money you actually need to bring that project to a commercial application. The governance of the Innovation Fund, as DG Klima, we are responsible for setting the policy priorities and setting up the work programs. We work through annual calls mostly. We try to do that in a way that we reflect also, we respond to upcoming policy priorities. And I would say that in the last couple of years, batteries and clean tech manufacturing in general has been part of that. As part of Repower, we have significantly beefed up our support for clean tech manufacturing. CENEA, as an executive agency, plays a crucial role, I would say, because they are responsible for the implementation of the program, for doing the evaluation, but also for the program reporting. And I would also very much like to say that it is also the role of CENEA, and they really do major efforts in doing that, in monitoring the projects and trying to help the projects towards full completion and make them successful projects. So they are a truly very important partner for you also during implementation. It's not just evaluation. We have an Innovation Fund expert group where member states and different stakeholders are represented, which we use to give advice on the further development of the program. And also we consult member states on the pre-selected proposals. We then also have support from a number of consultancy companies. And the European Investment Bank also has an important role in the sense of, first of all, the monetization and asset management of the revenues, but also in terms of project development assistance. So if you would like to submit a project, but you are not yet fully ready, you think you still need advice on how to structure your projects, how the financing could go, the European Investment Bank is also there to help you out. So what have we done so far? We have worked until recently with both what we call large-scale calls and small-scale calls, which were really for smaller projects. You see also that the budgets are quite different between the large-scale calls that we have done, the first, the second, and the third, and the small-scale calls. The budget has been increasing over time. I think there are several reasons for that. The first one is that actually the carbon price in the ETS has increased, which means that the monetization of allowances has brought more money to the fund that we can spend. But also that we have seen that there was quite a large oversubscription. We have seen that the pipeline of projects was significantly larger than what we could support under the Innovation Fund. So to the extent possible that we had the revenues available, we have tried to increase the funds to be the budget of the calls in order to serve the large projects pipeline that was out there. I think in the latest call, the Innovation Fund 2023 call, we have a budget of 4 billion, but the total amount of submitted projects is actually exceeding exceeding 20 billion euros. So we are really getting a lot of response, which is of course also due to the very broad scope of the program. And last but not least, we have also done our first ever European level auction on renewable hydrogen, where 800 million, it was actually a pilot, 800 million was available, and where through priced purely on the basis of price competitive bidding, we are supporting the production of renewable hydrogen over 10 years. So it's a really innovative concept. And from the results, we have seen that we actually, through an auction process, were able to really get competition in the market, to get price transparency. And the prices that we received bids on were below, the winning bids are below 0.5 euros per kilogram. Those of you who are less familiar with what, for instance, the support that is given in the United States, which amounts up to $3 per kilogram, we really see that the competitive bidding helps in creating competition and get the best value for taxpayers' money. The portfolio is, of course, extremely broad considering the scope. We see a lot of hydrogen projects. We see a lot of projects in energy-intensive industries, like, for instance, in the cement and lime sectors. The third one, manufacturing components for renewables or energy storage, is also very important, and that excludes basically the battery value chain. So far we have supported 13 projects with a total budget of 750 million euros. Chemical sectors, obviously, refiners, but also many renewable energies are getting support. So we also have a few very large projects in iron and steel, so a very broad scope. So the portfolio looks really nice in being able to serve a broad range of sectors. And also very important, our goal is competitiveness and avoidance of greenhouse gas emissions. If all these projects would be realized to the full extent, they could reduce over 10 years 470 million tons of CO2 equivalent. So that shows that it can really make a difference also on that side. So we have currently 100 projects ongoing and 27 under grant agreement preparation. In terms of the member states, we are also increasingly through the different calls or broadening our geographical distribution. So far, 24 projects in 24 countries are available or going on. Of course, it's natural that bigger countries like Germany, Spain, France have more projects, but we also see that other countries are succeeding in getting proposals through. So, and we believe also that over time, this further geographical distribution will further improve, so that we can really serve the entirety of the EEA. Now, going a bit further in the details on how it works, projects must be located in the EEA. So that means EU member states, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. We do give quite a substantial time, although sometimes we try to beef that up a bit also in the criteria. It is important to go fast, and we encourage everybody to reach financial close as soon as possible. But in principle, you have a time until financial close until 4 years. That's specifically important for energy-intensive industries, where sometimes, you know, the permitting, the supply chain of new fuels is quite complicated. So we do give quite some time to give maximum time for to be able to reach financial close and go towards entry in operation. Projects have to run for at least 5 years, except for small-scale projects. And as I said, maximum grant amount must not exceed 60% of the relevant costs. Eligible activities are also each time listed in the topic. So within a call, you have different topics that or then can have a more specific scope. I'll go into that, what we have done for batteries on that side. Projects are evaluated on excellence. So that is something that I really would like to stress. You have to come with your best possible proposal, make your effort to make an excellent proposal. You will be evaluated on 5 criteria. Degree of innovation, obviously very important. Greenhouse gas avoidance potential, project maturity, replicability, and cost efficiency. In that context, I would also like to stress project maturity as being a very important criteria. You really need to demonstrate you are ready to go ahead, both technically, financially, having the project management in place to make many projects fail on that, not only in the evaluation but also in practice. So that is really key, that your project is ready to go, that you have a mature project that you can submit to the evaluators. Degree of innovation is important so far, and that is something that I had to stress. That is sometimes, we can list that also more explicitly in the call, but degree of innovation is important, and a very purely incremental innovation where you just are as good as the state of the art and perhaps a bit better through incremental innovations is really not really good enough. You really have to strive towards something that is significantly beyond state of the art. That is something that is also very much looked at. So make your case in your project proposal in how far you are better than state of the art in terms of your product, but also perhaps in terms of your process. I mean, in that sense, we are open. We look at innovation in a broad way. It can be product innovation, it can be process innovation, it can be innovation on, compared to what is on the market. But you really need to make your case there, how you are better than what is available today in the market. Let's have a look at what we have supported so far. Actually, quite a substantial amount. In total, about 500 million euros for battery projects have been approved. I list here a number of the projects. Of course, on our website and on the CENEA website, you can have a closer look what these projects all entail. They include the manufacturing of components, of course, where we have a number of projects. They include upstream of cell manufacturing. We have one cell project. We have also recycling of battery materials, so really the entire value chain. But we also have projects which are more about the application of batteries, for instance, in terms of electricity grid storage, vehicle-to-grid applications. So quite a wide variety of projects in the field. Here you have the list of projects that are more really about the manufacturing along the battery manufacturing chain, if I can call it that way. We have one project on anode production, which is of course important considering that actually anode production is hardly done in Europe. Most of it is in China. We have battery components. We have one project on the large-scale manufacturing of battery cells, 2 projects on battery packs and modules, and already 3 projects on battery recycling. So quite a spread over the value chain over the battery value chain. So this is one example, and I mentioned this one because anode production is an important element in the battery value chain, where in Europe we have very little projects. This is a project called ELAN, which can achieve a 90% reduction in the CO2 footprint, which is also because we know that some of these processes are very energy and carbon intensive. Very interesting, not only from the perspective of increasing resilience in Europe of the battery value chain, but also important in terms of improving the carbon footprints of the battery value chain. This is Northvolt, the project regarding a plant for battery modules in Poland, with a total envisaged maximum capacity of 12 gigawatt hours in terms of battery modules for energy storage solutions. This is not about the automotive applications, but more about energy storage solutions. So for the moment, we also have a call ongoing that is under evaluation. The call was closed in April and is currently under evaluation. This call actually had in total 5 topics. Large-scale projects which were open to large-scale, medium and small-scale projects which were open basically to the entire scope of the Innovation Fund. But we had a specific project topic on clean tech manufacturing, which includes not only battery manufacturing, but also electrolyzer manufacturing, solar PV manufacturing, heat pump manufacturing. A broad range of clean tech equipment with a total budget of 1.4 billion, which was actually a doubling of the budget that was available in the previous call. So quite an important increase, also thanks to the fact that we had seen that the previous call that we made was also oversubscribed. So we have made an extra effort to try and beef up the budget there also. Pilot projects is actually something which is a bit different. That really focuses on the projects that are not really yet commercial, but really are medium-size piloting of a certain technology. So it's not a fully commercial project, but really the step beforehand. So the clean tech manufacturing topics, I've mentioned that it has a wide range of different clean tech equipment. It is focusing on the value chain, on the components and the materials, except mining. And recycling also there is included. Now, overall, we are quite encouraged by what has been submitted in this call. We had quite an oversubscription, but also in the field of batteries, we have projects about components, about anodes, cathodes, precursors. We have projects also on recycling. So again, we see that the value chain is quite well represented. Next to that, we also have projects again in for instance, thermal energy storage, where we see quite some more projects than we have seen so far, and also again on electricity or storage projects in the electricity system. So quite a good outturn also in this call. So if we now look a bit forward, as was said before, Vice President Šefčovič has announced in the context of the EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement that the Innovation Fund is intended to spend in the next 3 years 3 billion for the battery value chain. When we look at the situation, we are, of course, for the moment, very much into a consultation process, and we have done a major consultation on the 25th of April, and we will do another one tomorrow, actually, to go a bit deeper into a number of issues. This is, of course, a slide you all know, or similar slides that a lot of announcements have been made in Europe regarding the manufacturing of battery cells, and I think that relates closely to the fact that the automotive industry is electrifying quite rapidly, and at the same time wants its supply chain quite close to the actual factories that are producing. So it looks like we are succeeding to a certain extent to attract cell manufacturing to Europe. Now, announcements is one thing. That, of course, does not mean that there is a final investment decision yet. This is a slide that has been presented in the workshop on the 25th of April, where we tried to dig a bit deeper into all these announcements, in how far or how close are we to a final investment decision, or are we seeing that there are actually a number of projects that are not going ahead. We tried to, our consultants tried to bring them into three categories: expected, potential, and doubtful. And you do see that also considering the competitive situation, developments in the global markets, the increased competition, including from China. Also, the IRA, of course, plays a role into this, that it is not yet a done deal. I would say that there's still very much important work to go ahead in order to try and build this value chain in Europe. So that is certainly a message that we also got from the stakeholder consultation, that, okay, battery cells is an important element in the value chain, where all the different components come together. So quite an important element overall in the value chain. At the same time, when we look upstream, the situation is actually more difficult, I would say, in the sense that the more we go upstream, the less manufacturing we have in Europe. Certainly on the mining side, but also when it's about precursors of cathodes, cathode and anodes, their market developments are still a bit slower. Of course, there is strong cost competition from Asia. And what we see, of course, is that in Asia, there is already this vertical integration of the supply chain, which of course can help, together with other factors such as energy costs and labor costs, represent quite a challenge also upstream. So if we think about resilience of the European battery value chain, it might also make sense to look more upstream to try and strengthen that aspect of the European battery value chain as well. In the workshop, you have probably seen that we had presented a paper with three options. One of them being to continue with a regular grants call. Another option was indeed to go towards this alternative approach with competitive bidding and an auction, where the emphasis is much more on having that the projects compete on price. And a third one that we also presented in the paper is actually also to have more financing methods through the EIB to support projects through financial instruments. A few points came out. We tried to also give information to the sector on what are the implications of the different instruments. An auction, of course, means price is extremely important, so you're really competing with your competitors on price. There are no payments before entry operation, but you are being paid as you produce, a bit like in the Inflation Reduction Act. So that is purely output-based, while a grant proposal could also foresee a certain amount of some grant financing upfront before financial close, but also during construction. So that is an important difference between the two. Overall, when we looked at the results of the stakeholder consultation, we did have the impression that a lot of stakeholders, for instance, because of this potential possibility to have upfront financing, to favor regular grant financing a bit more than an auction approach. But for sure, that will be further discussed also in the next days. The EIB also had presented a number of options. This is actually their slides. Basically two options: EIB project finance, which could also include large-scale manufacturers. So there, the emphasis is a bit more on upscaling, a bit less on innovation. You could think about two options: a facility that combines an innovation fund grant with an EIB senior loan. That's a bit more difficult to implement in the short notice, and we know that was also one of the messages we got in the stakeholder consultation, that speed is important. Or we could also work through an additional innovation fund guarantee that we give to the EIB to increase the ticket size of senior loans. An alternative approach is actually the EIB venture debt instrument, which really focuses on early stage innovation. So we have, of course, companies in Europe, and we know that there is a pipeline out there that really early stage innovators that really want to bring their technology to market, where it could be through venture debt that we support, or that the EIB supports those kinds of companies. They have done already a number of those supports through the venture debt instrument, so that could be further developed if the innovation fund gives basically a top-up to the guarantee, a top-up guarantee towards the EIB, which enables the EIB to give financing towards those companies. That's about it. Perhaps a few more words on the stakeholder consultation. We are really glad how good response we got, so that really helps us to try to make the instrument in a way that fits your needs. The points where I think there's still a bit of discussion is this question of focus more on upscaling, focus more on the cell manufacturing and the upscaling of cell manufacturing versus a full value chain approach. So those issues are still a bit, we are trying to look at a bit. Of course, what we also got was that the resilience of the supply chain is important. So how can we make the supply chain in Europe stronger, better technological leadership, but also, in addition to that, how can we make the European battery value chain perform better compared to the competitors in terms of its carbon footprint? We do have a bit of a competitive edge there, but can we build on that actually to build further on that? So resilience and carbon footprint are two things that really came up in the discussions, and I'm grateful for your input on that. We will have to look a bit further in detail how exactly to work that out, and we are, of course, again looking at you to help us on that. And the last point perhaps is that we also saw that from the submissions we got that there is quite an important pipeline out there. We got quite some information on companies saying, I foresee to go towards project implementation in 2025, 2026, 2027. So we also see that there's a good pipeline out there to make this work. Thank you for your attention. If you want more information, on the slides you have a few links that you can contact. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Stefan. That was really comprehensive, and I think it shed light on a different aspects. But still, as you know, it's a pretty complicated process. Still, you are in the phase of decision making on how to exactly implement that, and then after that, there is basically benchmarking of what are the metrics, and then we get to the application process. So it's a long journey. It's at least for 3 years, and as you mentioned, there's a potential for moving that to the next step. So I'm opening the floor to you. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. If not, I can start with one. Oh, please, sorry, Stefano. Eliana, my colleague, please, could you? Thank you.
Stefano Saguatti, Mans. I would like to have some opinion about the difference between IPCEI and the innovation funds. Personally, I am vice chair of one of the largest IPCEI on batteries, and there are several associated partners that are coming to the IPCEI with their project portfolio. And as you know, the IPCEI have some obligation like spillovers that are quite important and are funded by the state member. I have a question. Is it possible for companies that are already part of the IPCEI as a single legal entity or even as a consortium to integrate some presenting to the innovation funds some project that can be complementary to the actual IPCEI project portfolio?
Yes, well, the fundamental difference, of course, between the Innovation Fund and the IPSAI is, of course, that IPSAI is state aid. So that is a process that goes via the member states, as you know very well. The Innovation Fund is an application to the Commission and is evaluated by CINEA. Within the Innovation Fund, we also have requirements relating to knowledge sharing. If you talk about spillovers, I mean, of course, company confidential information is not to be disclosed, and we guard on that, but there is an element of knowledge sharing and working together also in the Innovation Funds. Now, whether you can do complementary activities in the Innovation Fund, of course you can do that. It all depends, of course, on the overlap between the two. The moment it overlaps, then you need to start looking that you really want to have two funding streams for the same activities. Of course, at that moment, we need to look at the question of cumulation of funding, which is in principle is possible, but that will need to be investigated, of course, that there is no overfunding. Then we go, of course, into a bit of detailed rules regarding cumulation of funding, but in principle, it is possible. If it's about the same activities, if it's about other activities, if it's linked to the IPSAI project, but it is really something different, then it is possible.
Sorry, just to follow up on that, I think on the option one, it was explicitly mentioned that there is no possibility for accumulation. Is it like...
What we have done under an auction, with the renewable hydrogen auction, is of course that it was clear that a number of state aid elements cannot be combined with innovation fund funding, with the auction. Why is that? Because the moment you have national state aid, if on the renewable hydrogen production, then you are distorting the auction because there's no more a level playing field. So in an auction, there we have said very clearly, we don't combine, there are a few exceptions, but they are minor. In principle, you cannot combine the two. For grants, it's a bit different. There it's easier.
Exactly, thank you. Please.
Sorry, can be legal entity or even a consortium?
It can be a consortium, yeah.
Hello, Nikos Mantsoufas from Sunlight, Greece. Two points I would like to raise. The first one is related to the whole concept of the Innovation Fund. It looks and it starts becoming a central European instrument that is very much needed in Europe, that is coordinating policies, and that is, in my view, very much welcomed. And the point I would like to make on that is that now that we will have a new commission, etc., we need, all of us, to push for further funding under the Innovation Fund. We talk about 40 billion, 3 billion for the batteries. One would say this is good, but for me this is not enough. We need to think big. We're facing immense competition from China and the US, and this funding, if one would see it as I said, good enough, really, out in the world, this is not enough. So I would pass the message that let's leverage on more funding on the Innovation Fund, and an idea could be also that the European Commission is asking for the member states to top up with their national funding on a very well-run central instrument. Second point I would like, which is again not very clear to me, is in regards to the innovation, and if that innovation is referred to Europe or at global scale. Again, we are talking about batteries. We all know that the battery market is mainly in Asia, and for long it will, or at least for some time, it will be there. So when we are trying to build something in Europe, definitely In many areas, this would be seen as innovative for the European continent, but one could argue that this is not innovative if you are comparing what they are doing in Asia. And this industrialization, scaling up, and innovation needs to be in a good balance so as to have projects really done and not claim innovation that we have seen examples already, that later within this 5 years period, we understand that that scale of financing from banks, equity, on innovation that look to be there and look to be also commercial, sometimes this is not the case. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, if I can react, of course, the size of the Innovation Fund has been quite a discussion already in previous ETS revisions. Last time we were a bit disappointed that compared to the Commission proposal, the Innovation Fund was a bit downscaled because we had proposed to double it and that did not really materialize. Now, I think when you talk about the next Commission, the issue is again basically on the table with the next MFF. The LETA report was, if I can quote something on that, it did say when it's about industrial competitiveness in the broad sense, not only about clean tech, but that he said something like EU-level funding must become more important. You mentioned, the combination with member states. Money, if the EU pot is not getting much bigger, we are working on that. The innovative thing, one of the innovative issues that we did with the hydrogen auction is that we said that we are organizing an auction, 27 companies of 27 member states, or well, 30 member states can, EA countries can participate. We can offer this as a service to the member states. So that in a way what we did is that the European auction was cleared. You had European winners, but after that, above that clearing price, you still had many projects, more than 100 actually, that were not winning. And member states could pick up those projects in order to follow the bidding order, but the next projects could be supported at national level. And actually there is one member state who has taken that opportunity. Germany had committed 350 million euros to support German projects which were not good enough to win in the European clearing. So that was indeed exactly what you say, a combination of a European auction with national money. So we certainly are advocating towards member states for more member states to participate in that, because it means more price transparency, less bureaucracy, because companies, of course, can all use the same rules in one auction, so you don't have to learn 27 rules. So it's certainly something that we are advocating, and on the side of the regular grants, we are looking at opportunities. There's already the seal of sovereignty, which in a way, when there's not enough money and you're not supported in the Innovation Fund, but you have been evaluated as being better than all the minimum thresholds, you get a seal of sovereignty. Now the issue there is then, can member states still support that so their state aid still comes in? Because in the auction, this auction as a service, we had actually, together with DG Comp, pre-approved the state aid. For grants as a service, we're not there yet. We are talking to DG Comp to try and make this work, but that's one avenue we are working on to say, okay, projects that are not winning in the Innovation Fund, if they haven't been considered of high quality, is it possible for the member states to step in themselves? And then your third point on innovation versus scale-up, yeah, that is something that I think perhaps in the next workshop that can be still further discussed to see how the sector sees that.
Okay, thank you so much. Just very quick before we go to the next speaker, I wanted to ask you about the timeline. So is there any planning for the timing of the decisions and the date of the application? I know you're still in the process of making that happen, but for the potential applicants to have a better idea of how to basically
Yeah, the working hypothesis is still around the end of the year that we could, if possible, together with the grant that is planned for November. But the timeline is a bit not fully certain yet. But that is still the working hypothesis.
So it's going to be a very tight race if you're thinking about 5-6 months of basically a span for the application. Okay, thank you so much. Please send our appreciation to your colleagues. Thank you indeed. I know it's been a very busy month to really materializing that, and we really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So to the next speaker, which the project actually has been mentioned in Stefan's presentation. As you know, I mean, I don't need to go on why graphite is important and how the situation is in terms of the European dependency. One of the projects of the Innovation Fund is exactly about that. And it's unsurprisingly in Scandinavia, it's in Norway, and we have the a representative from the company to tell us more about the project itself and Viano's role. So Andras, thank you for accepting our invitation. Andras Forfang is the Vice President of Sustainability at Vianode, and I'm giving the floor to you to walk us through your projects and the potential of it in terms of sustainability and in terms of securing the supply chain of graphite in Europe. Please.
Thank you so much. Will you be sharing the slides or should I do that?
Do that too, so no problem.
Okay, just give me 1 second. There we are, right?
Yeah.
Great. Very happy to be here. Very happy to share some lessons on our EU Innovation Fund process. It is very personal to me, and I'll tell you why. If you just jump to the next slide. No, yeah, that was one too far.
Maybe, yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
10th of July, 2022, almost 2 years ago. I was at the family cabin, and which is pictured here. And I just started my summer holidays, because in Norway we do that quite early. But I was not really in holiday mode. I was refreshing the Outlook inbox on my phone every 10 minutes, because we knew that the EU Innovation Fund results, they were right around the corner. And I was completely sure that Vianode would be selected for EU Innovation Fund support this time. It was our second application, and in the first year we applied, we got very good results. We were put on, please stick to the first slide a little longer. We were put on the reserve list for the grant, meaning that we were top 11 out of more than 350 projects. In that first application, we got top scores in most evaluation criteria. And our score in financial maturity had been too low, but we'd worked very hard to improve it since then. So I was really confident that we would be selected for the grant this time. And that would make us the first Norwegian EU Innovation Fund project. We'd scheduled a press conference, and I was ready to drive to Oslo to attend that once we got the confirmation. And at the cabin, it was a warm summer morning, and we were preparing for a late breakfast, and I checked my inbox yet again. And this time there was an automatically generated email there from the European Commission telling me to log into the EU portal to check the evaluation results. And I thought that was a bit strange. Why not just give us the good news by email, right? And it got me a little worried. And when I logged into the portal and checked our results, my worry was confirmed. We had failed to increase our score in financial maturity. So we didn't succeed with our second application either. There was no press conference, and we didn't become the first Norwegian EU Innovation Fund project. And we would have to regroup to send a third application the year after. So the EU Innovation Fund has been a big part of my life for 3 years, and it is very personal to me. And I'll talk more about financial maturity today, but before I do that, let me explain why the Vinode project scored so well in the other criteria. We go to the next slide, please. So one of the most important battery materials is synthetic graphites. And all electric vehicles today and in the foreseeable future will contain a significant amount of synthetic graphite. The problem is that synthetic graphite has a very high CO2 footprint and a very high energy consumption. And you can see how it's normally produced in the picture to the left here. And with that technology, synthetic graphite accounts for 20 to 40% of the battery cell CO2 footprint today. And Vinode has developed a new furnace technology that lowers the footprint by more than 90% and halves the energy consumption. And our technology does not compromise on product quality, and it's highly competitive in operations. So our project positions us very well to score high in most of the EU Innovation Fund criteria. So in degree of innovation, because it's a significant improvement to the technology used today. Relative emission avoidance for EV batteries in the EU Innovation Fund is 100% by standard. We had high technical maturity and operational maturity because we had proven our technology in our pilot facility, which you see pictured here to the right. And finally, our project is a perfect fit to many of the EU Green Deal policies, which resulted in what was called a high scalability score back then. So I think we have a really great project, but that does not mean, of course, that we would get high scores in all these criteria. And that brings me to how we solved the crux of our EU Innovation Fund application, which was financial maturity. So for our third Innovation Fund application, we decided to take a step back and look at how we structured our story in the business plan to improve our financial maturity score. Next slide, please. It may seem a bit obvious that you should focus on the story of your business plan, but I think it's really important for the EU Innovation Fund in particular because it's different from other investors, banks, and public funding programs, because there's not a lot of dialogue. You invest a lot of resources into creating a big application, which you submit to SINEA at the deadline, and then it's basically months of silence. And if the evaluators are in doubt, they'll probably not ask you any questions. So the application story must be very clear and it must be credible. And this is especially important for financial maturity since a lot of projects lack hard evidence in that criterion. And in our third application, we spent a lot of time restructuring our story in the business plan to present credible arguments for project success, and they would support our financial maturity score. And mainly what we did is one, we changed the format of the business plan to a PowerPoint format, which may sound simple, but it made it more visually appealing and presented our story more clearly. For key arguments, we got very detailed in order to build trust in what we said. For example, for customer qualification processes, which in our case is OEMs or battery cell producers, we made detailed timelines of, for example, every meeting, interaction, every sample exchange, and every planned milestone. And we also backed up those key arguments with as solid third-party documentation as possible. That could be support letters, from customers or suppliers or investors or banks or financial advisors, or it could be market reports backing up our view. And keep in mind that a general rule for financial maturity is that the longer the period until financial close, so the period until the final investment decision, the less financially mature you have to be. So if there's 1 year until financial close, that would require less or more documentation than if there was 2 years. So to summarize, I really believe that taking your story seriously can really gain you points in the EU Innovation Fund. And I think that helped us overcome the financial maturity crux. Next slide, please. And we didn't give up after 2 failed applications. We reworked our application, and at the same time, we matured our project. And finally, at our 3rd try in 2023, last year, we were awarded 90 million euros to our project to build a large-scale anode material plants in Frir West Industrial Park in Norway. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Andras. Please stay with us. We're going to have a couple of more presentation, and I will come back to, and we come back to you with more questions on that. So I'm afraid that you were not alone in your holiday being ruined by bad news as Innovation Fund. You shared a story with a lot of other applicants, and that in theory, the Innovation Fund is a continuation of the Horizon Europe in many ways. The deployment is the first, a lot of projects are first deployment. So a lot of Horizon projects, when we get at the demonstration level, we have this conversation a lot in our working groups. We extensively discuss what are the goal of the project and what that actually means, so we can write down basically the main KPIs for the projects to get there. But that's not a very piece of cake when you really want to apply for the Innovation Fund and really prove the case and show that you are at the demonstration level, you want to get higher. That's the main goal of the very unique project that is, Maria is here for us to present us, to really prepare and to really give the projects that are at the verge of eligibility for the Innovation Fund the training, a lot of basically support. Again, the application is really not a piece of cake. It's a very extensive work. That's why we have the seal of sovereignty that really shows if it doesn't mean you're underqualified if you didn't pass the basically the last part. So this is the project that really aims to tackle that, to prepare the primarily Horizon projects to get there. I give the rest of the story for Maria to tell. Thank you for accepting the invitation and let us know about the H2IF project, please.
Yeah, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to be presenting our project today. So I am Maria Mosquera from Clarence, and today I will be presenting the H2IF project in the context of the application fund. Okay, so first I will start by describing what the H2IF project is about, but then I will go deeper in detail about how to approach the Innovation Fund application and its main pillars. And I will try my best not to repeat what Stefan already mentioned, but rather go into offer more details and insights about each of these key concepts. Okay, so let's start by describing what the H2IF project is. So the H2IF project was born as a Horizon Europe initiative, and the idea is to promote the research and innovation efforts that are going on in the energy storage, but also in the hydrogen sectors by supporting 3 different projects that were selected during the Horizon Europe process application. And the main outcome of this project is to develop three different application proposals for the Innovation Fund, one for each project, but also to offer best practices for each of the sectors. So here we can see the partners that make up the H2IF consortium. And us, as Clarence, we participate as the coordinator of the project. And we have the three different Horizon 2020 projects and the different companies that are the technology owners. And the main reason why these projects were selected is because they represent a wide range of different technologies in the energy storage and hydrogen sector, but also because they represent different end users applications. So for example, we can see here we have LFP battery cell, but we also have hydrogen production storage, and we have flow batteries as well. Okay, so let me show you a summary of the H2IF project so far and the milestones that it has achieved since it started back this year in January. So one of the most important one is that as Clarence and coordinators of the H2IF project is that we participated in the battery stakeholder workshop that was organized with the Commission in May. And the main outcome of this participation, because we were able to offer our opinion and point of view and make some suggestions on how to improve the IF methodology, is that we were invited on a dedicated separate session by the European Commission to provide more detail of these insights and what we consider it needs to be improved. So hopefully we will be hearing more about the Commission, and they will be integrating our insights in the next Innovation Fund application period. And of course, we will be participating tomorrow in the Innovation Fund stakeholder consultation. Okay, so this is it about the H2IF project, but now I want to go deeper into how to approach the Innovation Fund application and its main pillars. So how to assess that your project is suitable, mature enough, and innovative enough to apply for the Innovation Fund. So let's talk about the first pillar, which is the degree of innovation. And we also saw this, this concept in the other presentations. So what is understood by degree of innovation, it can be either technological, but it can also be the scale up of process, but also in the potential of greenhouse gas emissions. Also, the degree of innovation has a geographical component. So whatever project you want to advance or to develop, it has to be developed within the European Union. And also degree of innovation means that it can already be applied in other continents, but if it's not yet developed within Europe, then it's considered still innovative. So it can be first and second of a kind commercialization. Also, if maybe it happens that your project is not, let's say, mature enough, or the TRL is not as high as what the large-scale call is asking for, you can also apply for the sub-call for the pilot plants. And it's very important to mention that the degree of innovation is weighted double for pilot plants. Okay, so I don't want to say too long in this slide because this was already covered by Stefan, but just to emphasize on the maturity and degree of innovation of the kind of projects that have to apply or can apply to the Innovation Fund and be successful, I just wanted to show you 5 of the different large-scale companies and projects that won the Innovation Fund in the last year. So as you can see here, they are well spread over the battery value chain, and they are, of course, industrially tested projects. And also, if you want to know more about these projects, you can also check the Innovation Fund dashboard that is available online. And now we can move on to the second very important pillar, which is financial maturity. As Andrea was well or rightly mentioning, it is not it is not easy, to assess or to follow the Innovation Fund methodology. So you really have to demonstrate that your project is financial mature, and you need to provide a credible business and financial plan. And this includes showing your knowledge on the risks, but also the mitigation measures that must be put in place. Also, you have to note that the discount factor that is applied specifically to demonstrate the financial maturity, it's not followed by your own company standards, but you have to strictly be in line with the innovation fund methodology. So this is when it becomes a bit tricky, the application process. Also, although it is expected that you show some level of profitability, this is not the final factor that will decide your project. So you can still show net present value and IRR to be negative in your profitability projections. And finally, you have to be able to demonstrate financial close, but no later than 4 years. This is after signing the grant agreement. And what is understood by financial close is the innovation version of being close to final investment decision. So you have to be ready to construct and implement your project. Let's say all the backend and front-end engineer has to be already developed. You need to have all the permits already on board and have everything, all the stakeholders ready to start the project. And also just to highlight what Andreas was mentioning in his presentation, financial maturity is one of the main reasons why projects fail. So this is something you need to be very careful when you apply. So for example, we can see here that while 50% of the projects succeeded in demonstrated the project maturity, around 47% failed in demonstrating financial maturity because they didn't have a credible financing plan. And this could be for many reasons. And also it is understandable because the methodology is a bit hard to follow. But for example, simple reasons as not showing enough backup from the stakeholders could determine financial maturity failure. Okay, just so to give you an idea of the kind of documents or deliverables that you have to prepare to demonstrate financial maturity, you have the relevant cost calculated, which is provided by the European Commission and that you must follow, but also you have to come up with a detailed financial model and business plan. And as Andreas was mentioning as well, it is very important to show commitment letters from your stakeholders, for example, board of directors, but also additional supportive documents. This will make the whole difference if you show market reports or other sources of information and assumptions. Okay, now I want to move on to the next pillar that is basically the core of the Innovation Fund project, so is the greenhouse gas emissions avoidance potential. So the main idea here is that regardless of the call that you apply to, you will have to demonstrate or calculate the potential that your project has to avoid the greenhouse gas emissions. And whatever project you want to develop, you need to take into account that you have to develop a reference scenario. So the reference scenario is a very strictly detailed in the methodology of the Innovation Fund, but it is something that is not very easy or straightforward to come up with. So this is where as consultancies, for example, come in and help the applicants to come up with a credible reference scenario. It could be either based on the EU ETS benchmark, but it's mainly based on the main function of the product that you are trying to put forward. So for example, for batteries, you can either compare your battery to an internal combustion engine or to a gas turbine plant. And you have to bear in mind that you can only apply to one sector, and this will be defined by the main product or service that you are trying to develop. Okay, and everything this is very important because everything that you show or demonstrate has to be during 10 years upon entry into operation of your project. And as well as I was showing the documents for the financial maturity, these are some of the deliverables that you would have to implement in order to show the credibility of your greenhouse gas emissions calculations. So you have to provide a feasibility study that is very detailed and thorough to provide the feasibility of the operation and technology of your development, but you also need some operational support. And again, here you need some commitment letters. For example, the local permit authority, but if you will also need some environmental assessment and certificates, some PPAs if you already have them, but also the maintenance plan. This is just to show you the level of detail that the Innovation Fund requires. Okay, then we can move on to the other pillar, which is the relevant cost. So as Stefan was mentioning before, you can only claim up to 60% of the relevant cost. And of course, it is dictated by this equation that we see here, and it's following the specific Innovation Fund methodology that has to be calculated for the 10 years of operation. But the main takeaway from here is that the discounted factor that is included in this equation, it has to be calculated following the Innovation Fund application. You cannot use your own company standards to calculate this. And I'm gonna show you why in the next slide. Because the discount factor, okay, it has two parts, the equity and the debt. And as you can see here, the capital debt is not strictly guided by the methodology, while the equity is. And this is for two reasons. So one is to enable the cross comparison between or among many projects in the different sectors. And the other one is to avoid the manipulation of relevant cost calculations, so you cannot claim higher grants. So as you can see here is very methodology oriented, and some values have already been defined by the European Commission. Okay, and finally, the last pillar is the cost efficiency. So basically what this criterion does is to capture the efficiency of public money in terms of the potential abatement of CO2. And here is how to calculate it. So it's basically the request grant plus other public support that you have had in this. I don't want to go into the detail of double funding, but then if you divide this into the absolute GHG emissions avoidance that you have calculated for your whole project during the 10 years, then you will have the cost efficiency ratio. Then if you take this cost efficiency ratio and you plug it into the cost efficiency score, then you will obtain basically the grade that you can have out of the 12 possible points. And of course, the cost efficiency score has to be a maximum of 200 euros per ton of CO2 equivalent for large scale projects, and for pilots it has to be 2,000. So this already gives you an idea, or by the midterm of the application you can already foresee what is going to be your grade by calculating the cost efficiency ratio and the cost efficiency score. So for example, we have here a project for a gigafactory that is claiming 200 million euros in the Innovation Fund grant, but has already received 50 million from national support, and they have calculated that their GHG emission potential is going to be 5 million tons of CO2 equivalent. So if you plug all these results in the cost efficiency ratio, you will end up with 50 euros per ton of CO2, and then it will finally give you a score of 9 out of 12 in the cost efficiency, which is quite good. And basically what we can see here to the right is that the main weaknesses of the cost efficiency, or main cause of failures in cost efficiency, is basically because you're not following the Innovation Fund methodology, which can be very tricky. And here I just want to offer some practical considerations based on our experience, but also on the observations of other consultancies. So this, what we can see here to the left, is all the documents that you need to be able to provide in order to demonstrate that you have, or you will have, a successful Innovation Fund project. And this can be break up into three different sectors: financial, technical, and operational. So basically what this tells us is that you will need a multidisciplinary intervention of many different areas in your company to provide information. So it's not only a group of people or a group of 5 people, it also requires C-suite involvement, such as CEO and CFO, because it has to be very thorough, very detailed and clear. And we have seen that the time allocated for the application to develop a successful innovation fund application is between 4 to 6 months. But I would say, based on personal experience, that the earlier you start, the better. And this is translated into 500 to 1,000 hours, especially for consultancy. And we really recommend that before you apply, you go through an intensive proposal assessment. So you can really assess how suitable, mature, and innovative your project is. So let's say all this time that you are going to invest in the application, it really becomes fruitful by the end. So you will save a lot of time if you do an intensive proposal assessment, because it will give you an idea of the kind of documents and the kind of information that you require, and the kind of information that you already have in your company, but also the efforts that you will have to invest in order to obtain these results. So this is not only an internal effort, but we have seen that many of the projects that have won the Innovation Fund have also required external efforts from specialized EU funding consultancies. And as I was saying before, you really need C-suite involvement, but also you really need to have defined your stakeholders. You need to have supporting documents, or at least, if you don't have them yet, be able to obtain them, and be able to know who your main stakeholders for the development of the project will be. Okay, and finally, this is the application overview, or the scoring sheet of the Innovation Fund. But the main idea here is to mention that the evaluation is a waterfall approach, is done through a waterfall approach. So you have to comply with the minimum threshold in each of these categories in order for the Commission to continue evaluating your proposal. Otherwise, it will be discarded. And here we have the minimum thresholds for each of the categories. So in general, the minimum score that you can obtain is 31.5 out of the 72 possible points. But it is really important to notice that the degree of innovation for pilot calls, it weights double, and the maturity aspect for clean tech call, it weights double. So here you can already have an idea on what strategy to implement if your project, of course, allows it to. So if you want to apply for large scale, for clean tech, or for pilots. Okay, and thank you. This was it. And if you want to know more about the SIF project, or if you're looking forward to apply to the Innovation Fund during the next period, you, of course, can contact us. Thanks.
Please. Thank you, Maria. Very practical information, but indeed very extensive and really detailed. So I'll be really quick. We are a bit behind the time. I want to present to you the results of our survey. We communicated with you and invited you to join and participate in our survey about the Innovation Fund, just to get the basic opinion of the RNI community, how, again, because of the very close relationship between the Innovation Fund and the Horizon projects, we just wanted to have your take on the topic and your preference on the topic. So just a quick review and refreshing your memory about the options. So the DG Climate, as Stefan extensively presented, proposed 3 options for this fund. One is what is called grant in the form of a fixed premium awarded through an auction. So very close and similar to the hydrogen auction. The projects will be evaluated by the output. The option 2 is what we went mostly through today, the case that Maria presented. Based on the regular grant, there are several area of and criteria of eligibility. Each of them require their own application. And then the third option, a blended product with the help of the European Investment Bank, either through the venture debt or some sort of a blended mechanism with the Innovation Fund itself. So I don't go to the details. I try to point out to the details going through the questions and answers of the survey. So we ask which one would be your first choice, second choice, and the third choice. And out of the 21 answers that we received, almost all of them went to the second option for the regular grants. Majority chose the first option, grants as a fixed premium, as their second option, and the third option pointing to the EIB funding or co-funding instrument. So a bit of a clear messaging which one is preferred, at least from the pool that we got. So why that choice? So why the regular grants? Why the business as usual? Most of the answers hinted toward the potential of this one, the regular grants, to support for the capex. As I mentioned, the first option doesn't really help with the capex. You are evaluated based on the output of the plant, and based on the announcement of the Vice President Shevchevich, it will be mostly about the cell manufacturing. So we are talking about basically kilowatt hour of cells. That's what the DG Clima's position paper basically showcased as the main metric. So, but the regular grant allows mostly for the capex and upfront costs. Then again, in the position paper, it's hinted that there's a higher chance of faster launch if we go with the regular grant, and that's very preferred by our community. Higher chances of, for the small enterprises, again, to be eligible for the first one, you probably need to be a big player. Allowance of the regular grants for the multi-criteria, again, 5 main criteria to be chosen instead of just cost, because the first one is mostly toward the cost competitiveness of the project. And the last one inclusion of the all parts of the value chain. Again, the first option is mostly towards cell manufacturing. The regular grants allows for more inclusion of the other parts of the value chain, from the upstream to downstream. So, but we also ask, if option 1 has been selected, what's your recommendations for it to be the most efficient? Again, asking for consideration of the multi-criteria assessment instead of pushing for the solely cost-based assessment. Support for all parts of the value chain, a very repetitive notion in our survey. Include funding for upfront costs. Again, that sounds to be out of the scope of the option 1, but it has been asked for. And making the application process, of course, as easy as possible. So if the second one, the most popular one so far, gets the selected option to move forward, what are the recommendations of our community? First, to simplify reporting and application process, make the job of Maria and others and Andras very easier, because let them enjoy their holidays better. Increase support of funding gap. So as Maria mentioned, 60% of the what I call the funding gap will be, 60% of the project's needs will be awarded. That has been proposed to move forward to 70 or possibly 80%. Support for all parts of the value chain again, and allowing for the co-funding, possible co-funding from other parts of the world outside Europe, and again increasing the pool of the access to the finance. And for the third one, sorry, okay, no. And for the third one, the blended product. If you were at the consultation meeting last month, the European Investment Bank started talking about what would be the best option for this, but still it is not 100% clear. But we had recommendation of inclusion of RTO with some mechanism within the funding, simplifying the assessment of the bank, and also again supporting for all parts of the value chain. So it was a pretty short survey, but sorry. Yeah, I just want to thank you for those of you who participated in this. Please keep in touch with us. As you heard, Stefan is also and DG Klima is very open to your input, your communications with them in terms of the assessment itself, in terms of how the assessment should be, how it should take into consideration, what are the main concerns. I mean, a lot of concerns within the battery ecosystem is very, very clear to us, but for the outside world, it's not really that obvious. So we have to be, again, more communicative in that sense. We are at your disposal for gathering your input, so you can always drop us an email telling us about your opinion about what should be done or what is the best for the community. Tomorrow there is a consultation meeting for the Innovation Fund again. We will participate in that. I know that some of you also will. We will update you with that, with the results of the meeting and also the next step. And yeah, that's it. Just make sure that you are keeping us in touch, and we are also stay in touch with you within this journey. So with that, I want to thank you all. I just open the floor for the questions if there are any. Let's give like 5-7 minutes to the questions for the session. Okay. Nothing from the online side also. So either it was very clear or it was too complicated to even raise any question. But thank you. Okay, so officially we start our General Assembly at 3:30. So, but before that, please help yourself with some coffee, teas, and snacks. And thanks again for being with us with this workshop. And see you in a half an hour. Thank you.